What's up guys, Houndish here, and today let's jump in and talk about the future of Destiny 2 and how that'll be evolving with the Destiny Content Vault coming in November. And of course plenty of us already know about the Content Vault and some of the stuff that's going to be taken out of the game. But we should talk about the significance of this moving forward because it does kind of spell a complete shift in the mentality around reprising content. When we look into the future, we know that Destiny 2 will receive 3 sizable expansions over the next couple of years or so. But possibly most important for reprise content is how this is going to feed into seasons in year 4. Based on what Bungie have said, they're giving us all the signs that D1's content will be very important in the future. But additionally, we can also now get a sense of how reprise content updates in the coming year will affect the next few seasons. And let's also talk about what Bungie seem to have planned for returning content into the future. Of course, this is a bit more of a general discussion about what this is going to mean for the game, more of an analysis of what Bungie have told us, and how that appears to start shaping up for the next year. And so be sure to give us your thoughts down in the comment section, guys. But initially, aside from the content that's going to be taken out of the game, on the subject of the Content Vault, Bungie have said that it will include all content from Destiny 1 and anything that cycles out from Destiny 2. They plan to bring back or unvault activity and destination content from the Destiny Content Vault each year. And of course that starts in year 4, with the Cosmodrome returning, as well as its 3 strikes, and the return of the Vault of Glass. But really importantly, they say that the content that goes into the Vault may return in the future, altered if necessary to fit the new state of the universe. But they also consider all Destiny 1 and 2 destinations and activities part of the Vault, and they plan to pull from that archive. Over the course of each year, the game's content scope will grow as they add new destinations and activities, both as part of expansions and seasons. And then of course, as they approach a new expansion, the plan is to cycle a bunch of other content into the Vault, with certain pieces of content coming out. But let's speak about how this appears to factor into year 4. And we know that the main reprise happening alongside Beyond Light is the return of the Cosmodrome. But the bit that hasn't been highlighted as much is how this is going to be keyed at new light players initially, and will only include certain parts of the Cosmodrome as part of improving the new light experience. So, as Bungie said, they're looking to leverage Cosmodrome's initial return to expand the new Guardian origin story to the world of Destiny, and veteran players will be able to experience that story as well. But it seems the main focus really is to improve the opening of the new light experience. And that's where Bungie's plans to expand on this later in year 4 kind of become more interesting. They say initially, Cosmodrome's Will of Crota Strike will be available in the Strike playlist when it returns in November, but then during Season 13, the plan is to have Cosmodrome fleshed out to roughly the same size as Destiny 1 Year 1, so that would exclude things like the Plaguelands and random little offshoots for DLC. But also, Cosmodrome's Devil's Lair and Fallen Saber Strikes will return at the same time. And so looking at Season 13, whether that may end up being a little bit delayed because of the pushback with the Beyond Light drop, but importantly, Bungie are going to introduce the other 2 strikes on the Cosmodrome and pretty much expand it to the full scale that we had it in Destiny 1. And naturally, with Bungie doing this for Season 13, considering how resource heavy an entire destination is to produce, it appears to stand a decent chance that the core of the Season 13 content drop will be mainly set in the Cosmodrome, quite possibly with new activity content as well. It seems kind of obvious when we look at it now, but removing all of the hype about Beyond Light, this tells us a lot more about what we could really potentially expect from content drops as part of seasons, specifically in year 4 and beyond. With us also knowing that the Vault of Glass is coming back, it's clearly indicating that reprise content will influence and add to seasons in a pretty significant way in the future. And if we compare the past year of seasons since Shadowkeep dropped to what's starting to line up for year 4, we do see quite a few mid-year content changes and ones that we haven't specifically seen in year 3. So, of course, strikes as part of a season isn't something that we've had outside of an expansion season. And then in year 3 specifically, we've had small additions like bunkers added to the European Dead Zone. But we certainly haven't had larger areas added to existing destinations, like Bungie plan to do with the Cosmodrome. And another thing that we haven't had in this past year would be a mid-year raid, right? We did get the Prophecy Dungeon as part of this season, but even in year 2 following Forsaken, we had Scourge of the Past in a seasonal drop. And so here we can see how reprising this type of content is changing some of the scope of what we can actually expect to see between large expansions. And the fact that we don't have new strikes introduced, or raids for maybe a year at a time, these are definitely elements that players enjoy to see and feel like they make the game more expansive and immersive than what we typically see in, purely seasonal content. And so to some extent, reprising content is what's enabling Bungie to promise a roadmap like this for year 4. And they've essentially said as much, but not in such a plain way, right? They also haven't overhyped this concept too much just yet, And firstly, that's because all of these pieces of content will have their own reveals when the time is right, but also because reprise content is a divisive issue. It is safe to say that some players like the idea of returning content from D1 more than other players, so it's possibly Bungie's idea that they want us to acclimatize to the concept of the content vault a little bit before they talk about how much this is really going to affect content moving forward. Personally, I'm pretty excited by the idea of reprise content. My main concern tends to remain on the side of the quality of that content. There are definitely different opinions in the community, so give us your thoughts in the comment section. We should also speak about things that Bungie have said previously regarding content production and how quickly they can do it. And Bungie have said historically, very roughly, that it can take as little as around half the time to reprise a location or a piece of content than it can take to build a brand new one. And of course that is kind of a broad statement and probably speaks partly to lots of technical stuff associated with bringing and rebuilding locations from D1 into D2, but it's worth remembering that D1 had 3 years of content, but it strips out some of the processes or early stage development stuff that you might need for a brand new idea. So now that we're in year 3, it's also worth remembering that D1 had 3 years of content of its own, and we know that Bungie are planning to support this game for at least another 3 years. So as they clearly focus more energy on other projects, content reprisal is going to be a massive deal. And I would personally guess that we're only just starting to see what this could potentially mean, especially later on in the next couple of years. A slight sideline from content reprisal specifically, but something new we learned about year 4 and content that'll be rolling out will be changes to enemy abilities. So Luke Smith said later on in year 4, of course with the arrival of Stasis, we'll see new abilities come into the game, including those that affect enemies. So essentially over a period of time, he said that we're going to see more and more enemy abilities affected by the stasis element, so it's pretty neat, and those kinds of components could of course be things that Bungie can think about a little bit more when they're able to pull from and reprise older content at the same time. But to touch on the Vault of Glass, of course it will be a mid-year raid, or at least a raid that comes as part of a seasonal drop. We're not expecting that in Season 13, so 14 or 15 is probably when we're going to see that in year 4. But of course it's a very cherished piece of D1 content. We've seen plenty of reprises in Destiny 2 in one form or another, but a lot of the golden stuff, like the Mythoclast, or raids in general, other particular weapons and pieces of content, have almost appeared like they've been considered too prestigious to think about bringing back, right? However, with Vault of Glass coming to the game, I'd say once again that it highlights that shift in mentality. Luke Smith teased the possibility of the Vault of Glass returning, I think a couple of years ago nearly. But of course for the reprise raid there are a lot of questions about loot. Are we going to see the same weapons and armor? Even the exotics like the Vex Mythoclast? I personally hope that we see them updated, and if we do, I'd say once again that it changes that landscape. But we can extend the question about rewards to things like the strikes that are coming back as part of the Cosmodrome in Season 12 and 13. I know a lot of us will be wondering, are we going to see strike-specific drops from Destiny 1 return? Of course those from Omnigul Sepix and the Fallen Saber. Once again, I'd personally hope so. And I think with us having so many reprise strikes into the game, we definitely want to see improvements to the loot for strikes across the board, right? Bungie have been circling strike improvements. And I think already what we had in D1, farmable, randomly rolled, awesome looking enemy drops would be one way to improve that. But that rant is of course a little bit of a side note. But similar to the tease for Vault of Glass from Luke Smith, or the indication that it was possible to bring that piece of content back, recently he also teased gently about SRL. When players ask if it's going to return, he said, "That's a good question, and one that we should continue to ask." That would kind of indicate broadly that something like SRL, especially being an activity in itself, is something we could quite possibly see in the future as well. But here, let's break down a bit of a logical roadmap of how this content could look based on what Bungie have told us. So in Season 12, the main focus is going to be Europa and the Beyond Light content. Of course, that'll be expansion material, and then there'll be a separate season running alongside that as well. Cosmodrome will come back alongside Beyond Light, and maybe is something that we'll be interested in checking out in the story missions, potentially some quests and a few objectives as part of the new DLC if we're lucky, but otherwise we'll be mostly focused around improving the experience for Beyond Light. However, the good news is that in Season 13, it seems pretty likely that we're going to see new content in the Cosmodrome, not just in the returning strikes, but maybe some story stuff, destination activities, or things like that. It is safe to say that more of the Cosmodrome is on the way for Season 13, and we'll very likely have new things to do there. But then for Seasons 14 and 15, the Vault of Glass is going to be coming back at some point in that half of the year, and that'll be within a couple of seasons of the Witch Queen expansion. So Of course, I'm sure that Bungie will produce plenty of new content as well in that time, but it's easy to imagine how bringing back stuff from Destiny 1 both alleviates pressure creating brand new content, but also creates that opportunity to introduce bigger bits of content than what Bungie would actually be able to produce normally as part of a season, right? Because they don't necessarily have to go through all of the processes involved in doing that. And then of course from the Witch Queen expansion across that final year that Bungie have at least given us on the roadmap, there are a ton of opportunities to use reprise content leading to the end of the current roadmap. Nonetheless though, I think this does give us an idea how important reprise content is going to be, but it's also an interesting conversation about how exciting that stuff could be coming back to Destiny 2, and then leaves questions about precisely how Bungie are going to do it. So it's definitely a cool conversation, and it's going to be pretty important stuff going forward. So give us your thoughts in the comment section down below, guys. Are you looking forward to the return of the Cosmodrome or the Vault of Glass? And are there any specific things that you'd love to see in that content drop? But also, in terms of other reprises, whether it's locations, activities, we also have other kind of bubble activities from Destiny 1 like Prison of Elders, as well of course as the other raids from the game. There's a ton of stuff that Bungie could do, so we're all very curious to see how they handle it, and I'd love to get your thoughts below. Otherwise though, I appreciate you tuning in, guys, as always. If you've enjoyed the video, a rating helps me out down below, but also feel free to get subscribed so I can keep you posted on D2 content. For now though, I hope you have an awesome day.